right, joining us now is Arise Director of News and Politics Editor, Sambo. Samna, very warm welcome. A lot has been happening in the political space, but, you know, the Naira crunch and the rest is trying to overshadow or, you know, tamper with what is happening. But the politicians are still moving ahead. Dati Baba Ahmed, the vice presidential candidate of Labour, is the one charging or alleging that the governor of Kaduna State, Rufai, has committed a treasonable felony and the rest, you know. There is a swing in the political calculation already, is it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian. And it's good to know that Nigerians are looking forward to these elections, and we must do everything as a nation to make sure that this election holds. Because the reason why we don't have a lot of, you know, anger more than what we already have is because there's faith in INEC that it will be able to hold the election. Now, back to the question you've asked. Yes, Dati Baba Ahmed, the VP candidate of the Labour Party, seems to be coming to the political scene to actually, you know, throw punches at Nasir El-Rufai. Considering the statement that he had made, actually, the APC Presidential Campaign Council has come out to clearly state that the candidate of the party, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, never gave directive to governors to disobey the president's speech and statement on, and then of course latest decision policy on the cash crunch. And as such, Malam Nasir El-Rufai had insisted in his broadcast that, look, as far as Kaduna State is concerned, he's in charge and the old Naira notes will continue to work. We've seen that happening in Ogun State and all of that. And it looks like the APC governors are actually toying with the powers of the president. Yes, we understand that the president has, in one way or the other, you know, gone overboard by not directly or by partially complying with the Supreme Court's order. Nonetheless, they should understand the position of the powers of a president. The executive's job is to interpret the decisions made by the court. The court also has to be very careful when it issues orders to the executive, because the court doesn't have the capacity to implement orders. It is the executive through the police and all of that that execute. So most times in a presidential system, what usually happens is that when judgments come from court or orders come, it's left for the president to be able to decide as to what exactly needs to be done in the interest of the country at the moment. So there's what's called discretionary powers. And of course, the Supreme Court itself knows that. The governors themselves know that. And that's why Malam Nasir El-Rufai, who is the one making, leading this group, actually himself should be calling himself to question, because there are several judgments that have been given Kaduna State that he, as the executive governor of Kaduna State, pushed aside without obeying. And a lot of things didn't happen. The police and others did not do that. That's because, number one, he has immunity. And then secondly, there are some discretionary powers that, you know, you have as an executive. But the good thing is that the APC national chairman, Senator Abdullah Adamu, has summoned a meeting on Sunday of all APC governors to come around and have a tete-a-tete as to what exactly is happening and why they seem to be the one standing up against their own president and a government that's led by the APC. And we could hear Festus Keyamo earlier today saying that, look, if he was in a position to actually advise the president, he wouldn't have asked that the president should go ahead, you know, and selectively allow the 200 Naira notes to be in circulation while pulling aside 500 and 1,000. But doesn't that tell you that there's a problem in the government, that the presidency itself is not communicating well? How can a member of the executive be accusing his other colleagues of not misadvising the president? So it means there's no communication even in the government and then of course in the party too.
You've said so many things, but we'll keep our fingers crossed for the outcome of that meeting. And just to inform our viewers that we also have a senior advocate of Nigeria on standby to tell us the implication of all of this legally. But Sam, I want to ask you about politics. And I want to stay with the Labour Party, which we started with, because we now know that the governorship candidate in Kano has defected to the All Progressives Congress. Now, that's not uncommon, but what does this mean for a Labour Party? I mean, 8 days to the presidential election and, of course, some weeks to the governorship election.
Well, I'd actually didn't want to complete that question first. You asked me about Dirty Baba Ahmed and El-Rufai, because I had thought that, I mean, Dirty Baba Ahmed will focus on areas like this in Kano. I mean, for the Kano state governorship candidate of the party to be pulling out right now, it tells a lot as to what exactly is happening within the party. There's also no national cohesion within the leadership of the Labour Party and some of its state chapters. And so, being the leader, because by the virtue of his position now as the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, is the leader of the party in the Northwest. And the key state in the Northwest, which has 7 states, is Kano. And Kano seems to have the second highest number of voters in the election. So I think instead of concentrating on El-Rufai, he should have been investigating what exactly would lead his governorship candidate to not only resign for the party, but join the APC. And of course, we must continue to also awaken other political parties to know that Bola Tinubu is a master strategist. They mustn't be carried away by the euphoria of what we see on social media and so on. You can see that despite all the cash crunch and the disagreements that are ongoing in the APC, Tinubu was in Ibadan yesterday and he met with Governor Seyi Makinde. Yes, and then you can see that someone in a key state like Kano is defecting and coming to the APC. So that means that in the eyes of the public, sometimes we think APC is not, you know, factoring certain things into place. They are growing strong politically, getting the key people that mean a lot to the elections.
Oh, yes. Let's go to Enugu State, where, you know, a court there has adjudicated in a matter where the ADC governorship candidate went to court to ask that all the candidates of the PDP be disqualified, and the court said you are a busybody, an interloper. You understand that? Threw away the matter and again citing jurisdiction. Yes. What does this portend for the, you know, PDP?
Very good judgment for Nigeria, not for the PDP, because, I mean, PDP left to its own challenges. It's not different from the APC and even of recent the Labour Party. There's a problem of internal democracy within our political parties. A lot of things are happening. That's why you can see a governorship candidate, for example, of the Labour Party, just less than 2 weeks before, you know, trying to step. What happens to all the people who put their trust in you? Isn't it a betrayal of the trust? Now, coming to this case, you see where there are issues of internal democracies in political parties, but the courts have been trying to play safe. And don't forget, former President Goodluck Jonathan had counseled recently, and of course that's the thinking of so many people in the country, that the courts should not have a role in deciding who should be the candidates of political parties or the winners of elections at the general election level. Because the voters should have the utmost right to be able to decide who will govern them. And it's the same thing in the political parties. We shouldn't have other political parties going into other political parties to tell them that they didn't conduct their primaries well or whatever. So of what powers does the ADC have? And it's the same thing that Wike was trying to do in Rivers State, you know, going into other political parties like the ADC and then our core party APC and telling them that they didn't hold their primaries well or the areas they were supposed to do. I mean, you know, causing all sort of confusion. But it's good to know that the judiciary is bringing the power back to the party and say, look, your party members are the only one who can decide how you actually do everything, but make sure you follow your constitution. Unlike in the past where we have ex-party orders, you know, cancelling the decisions of, you know, the members of the party as to who exactly they want to be their candidates.
Yes. Very quickly, before we let you go, Special Forces is being alleged, you know, to be reintroduced in Cross River State, in Ebonyi State. The governor has banned the dreaded Ebubo-Agu, you know, and of course in Kano State, we heard the commissioner of police there that his ban all other quasi organizations will not be allowed to the presence of the
IGP also said that.
The IGP, yes, at the villa the other day. What are your thoughts here? Good? You know, for the polity, particularly during the elections?
Yes, very good, as long as the police also determines and takes its key role very, very important, because in this election, the police is the key security agency that's supposed to provide security for everyone. But when you go to local policing, and sometimes you see some of this neighborhood watch and other organizations are closer to the people than the police, then the people would tend to trust them more than the police. And especially when it comes to allegations that maybe policemen are being bribed also by politicians, there's a tendency for people to want to also trust those local security outfits. But I can tell you, for this election, the best thing we can do is to actually keep them away, because they can be used by these same governors or by other persons to be able to cause chaos. And then when they go to areas where an opposition candidate has an upper hand, they will cause chaos there, and of course, so that the governing party's candidate will have an upper hand, and then there will be a problem. Look, the police should understand its role as the key security agency that will be playing its role here. And that's why we must also appeal to the military to make sure that they limit their role during this election to, you know, within state boundaries and all of that, and not getting close to the polling unit. Those who are to be at the polling unit, the Civil Defense Corps, the police and all of that, they should take their roles very, very importantly.
Seriously.
So that the governors will not have any excuse to be able to call these people back. And I can tell you that the election is going to hold peacefully, and we are appealing to the politicians.
We got that assurance from the villa when Madam Guber even signed, you know,
I mean, there was a statement here. There was a statement today by the presidency, and that's where I actually wanted to end with, where the presidency was assuring Nigerians that the calls for interim government should be dispelled, that there's nothing like that. The best thing that can happen to the Buhari presidency is to give Nigerians a free, fair, and credible election that's inclusive, and of course, that the results, once announced, will not be disputed, so that we don't get into serious violence. But I can tell you, the political parties that have not prepared themselves before the election day will have themselves to blame, because we have less than a week to go.
We know all that. Samna, thanks so very much. Samna Sambo, Director News and Politics Editor, Arise News.
Thank you.